and welcome to episode 13 of Rapid Fire with me, your host, Wolvie. And today I am here with Tom, otherwise known as Son of McCrag. Something to do with the Ultramarines, I'm guessing. How are you doing, my man?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm episode 13, 13th Legion. That's got to be a sign.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So hopefully by now, if you're not a first-time viewer, you know kind of how we do things. But if you are a first-time viewer, we're going to go straight into the rapid fire challenge, which is where I'm going to fire 15 questions at Tom as quickly as I possibly can. He's going to answer them as quickly as he possibly can. The record time at the moment stands at 1 minute and 11 seconds, which is pretty quick. And then we're just going to go through and just have a little hobby talk about all things to do with you. Not about me, it's about you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'll get the old stopwatch ready. So you give me a thumbs up when you're ready and we'll go. How many years have you been in the hobby?
23 years.
What game systems do you follow?
40k MTG.
What are your current armies?
Ultramarines, Imperial Knights, Demons.
What was your first miniature?
Paint squad, tactical squad. Paint set. Ultramarines.
We're painting the most.
Tiberius.
We're painting the least.
Penitent Engine.
What was the last model you completed?
Eliminators.
How much hobby time do you get per week?
15 hours-ish.
What is the current model you're working on?
Incursors.
Your single favourite thing about the hobby?
Games.
What's your least favourite thing about the hobby?
Gary movement.
Who or what got you into the hobby?
A sleepover.
What keeps you in the hobby?
The community.
And what is your one hobby target for this year?
Build my Age of Sigmar army.
That is it. That's time.
Yes.
How quick do you think you were?
That was pretty quick. You went quiet at the start, like I couldn't really hear you.
Yeah, well, it didn't hold you up. You officially are now going straight to the top. Your confidence was well merited. Exactly a minute.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, straight to the top. That's not bad. That's pretty quick.
That's what she said.
So, how did you said you obviously it was a sleepover that got you into it? Tell me more about that. How did it then go from there to where you are now 23 years later?
Okay, so I must have been, I don't know, like 11, 12-ish. And I was sort of aware of Games Workshop, but I'd never really been in there. I'd like seen, I'd walk around car boot sales and stuff like that, seen like people selling stuff like that. But then this one night, I was at a sleepover, it was a friend's birthday, and he had on his shelf in his bedroom, he had obviously at the time they would have been metal. He had a Catachan Jungle Fighters Imperial Army.
Yep.
And I was just like, what is this? And he sort of explained it to me, and that was it. It was really just sort of the rest is history. As chance would have it, his brother was a few years older than him, so we would have been like 12, 13, I think, actually. And his brother was like early 20s, and his brother was a Dark Angels player, so he had a shed load of metal Dark Angel models that he was looking to get rid of. So I was like, yes please. So I bought most of my first miniatures actually off my friend's older brother.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that was my shoe in.
So is this back when you're close to me, so you would probably remember the Games Workshop being either down the Butter Market in Ipswich, or was it even before that when there was in the Debenhams?
Yeah, I am old enough to remember Debenhams, unfortunately.
I had a discussion with Quipster in the last episode where I was trying to explain that I don't think anybody's Games Workshop, like anywhere in the world, has perhaps had a weirder positioning than ours, like next to the underwear section in Debenhams.
Do you know what? I don't even remember what was around it.
I remember the underwear section because I remember my granddad taking me down, and he was like, "This is a weird place for this sort of shop," and he was just stood there looking at the underwear.
Yeah, it is really weird. You'd never find that by mistake, would you? You'd never just randomly walk past it on the second floor of a Debenhams.
It wasn't even like it was in with the boys' clothing or like, you know, the male clothing. It was in on the second floor where all the women's stuff is, which was just really confusing to me. But
Remember that fondly, though.
I mean, they're all good. They're all good. That was back when they had more than one staff member, and you always got kind of a good reception for a Games Workshop store. Now they're kind of, if you depending on what day you go in, they can be split between trying to have a conversation over here, and you've got somebody trying to take up the hobby here, and you know, back then they had the teams to take care of that.
The glory days.
The glory days. So, do you ever get bored of painting Macragge blue? You look at your profile. You look at obviously we've been in the same gaming clubs and things like that. I don't think we've ever actually played a game against each other, but you've been Ultramarines for a long time.
Do you know what? I don't, because I spent so many years not painting miniatures. Like between my first army and this army, I probably collected about 20 different armies, and I reckon I probably painted less than half of them. And it was really, there was a couple of things. There was lockdown. It was like, well, there's nothing else to do. That sort of motivated me. And something I came to terms with, which it took me a really long time to come to terms with this, but like, you don't have to paint every one of your miniatures to the best of your ability for them to look nice on a table. And I've reached an age now where as long as it looks great on the table, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So like at the moment, I'm painting some Grey Knight Strike Squad. They're not the most fascinating things to paint. It's pretty boring, but it's just a basic troop. So why are you putting in a bunch of effort when you're not really going to pay too much attention to that on a tabletop? And that's kind of how I do it. So when it's a character or it's like a centerpiece, full effort is used. But when it's a troop, or you know, for my Death Guard army, if it's a Poxwalker, as long as it's got paint on it and it looks relatively all right in terms of it being on the tabletop, it's not going to, you know, make too much of a difference. So what led you to the Ultramarines? You said you painted you've had a bunch of armies. Obviously, it started with Dark Angels. How did you get to now? Where you're, what is it? Ultramarines, Imperial Knights, and Demons.
Yeah. So it started Ultramarines. Everything that I bought off my friend's brother, I stripped and repainted because it was all metal. Did
you put it all into Ultramarine straight away?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So my first army was Ultramarines, and then just steadily built up over the years. And then I worked for Games Workshop for a few years as well when they were in Buttermarket Street. And my collection just obviously swelled because the discount was absolutely ridiculous at the time. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but back when you used to be able to mail order individual metal components, the staff discount, it worked out at roughly 80%. So you could buy an entire metal army for like 30 quid. It was insane.
I also remember when the store was in the Buttermarket, going to one of the rooms upstairs where there was just, I've never seen anything like it, thousands of old boxes, old models. Just, it wasn't, I can't even say it was a stock room because it wasn't new stuff. It was it was just stuff that had been on display, stuff that had been used, stuff that, you know, was really old. Like, I sit there and think now, there was probably tens of thousands of pounds worth of stuff in that room.
Yeah.
Just left in half open boxes, discarded in like Tupperware and stuff. It was.
Yeah, you're being kind. It was a tip. The only way to describe it. Really.
Like I say, I've only been in there once, and I can't even remember why. I cannot remember why. But yeah, and it was just the most shocking thing ever. So I can imagine, like working Games Workshop, how it would swell. And I'm fairly sure if I worked for Games Workshop, I don't know what their discount situation is now, but I would have a lot more than what I've got.
Yeah, I think it's 50%, because that's what it was. Off the shelf, it was 50%, and then mail order was like 80, 75, 80%, depending on what you ordered. But yeah, it was a lot. But yeah, then I came back round to Ultra. Basically, I built this huge collection, I painted less than half of it, and then my wife fell pregnant, and I was like, damn, okay, well, this ain't ever going to get painted now, is it? So what I did was I sold everything, literally everything.
Yeah.
Just put the money in a savings account, and then that's how I came to Knights. Actually, I was like, okay, so I need something small. I need something that I can, a realistic, achievable goal. So I bought 4 Knights with some of the money that I made selling everything. It was ridiculous. I think I made about $4,000 selling all of it. So I bought the Knights. I didn't love them. I didn't love the way they played. Like, I love building them. I enjoy painting them, but like, it's quite difficult to get, because this was 7th edition. So Knights were pretty much untouchable at the time. So like, opponents weren't exactly lining up. So I thought, I'll go back to my first love, which was Ultramarines. And yeah, that's how we got here.
So how do you balance that? Obviously, having a child, and then obviously the hobbying as well. Obviously, you balanced it through having a 4-model army for a short time. How do you balance it now? Because a lot of people find it hard to find any sort of hobby time.
Yeah, it is difficult. Like, it's mostly in the evenings, like, because he's 6.
Yeah.
So he goes to bed relatively early, and then me and the wife will have dinner, and then we'll just sit down for a couple of hours. I'll do a bit of painting. My wife's very crafty as well. She likes sewing and stuff like that. So we'll just sit together, and we'll put like something on the background, like, I don't know. I think, what was the last thing we watched? I think it was The Good Place. Just something like
I can't say I've seen it, but
it's really funny. It's really easy to just sort of have on in the background. So that's sort of how we. It's nice to get to spend time together by doing something that we like. We've got like compatible interests, in a sense. Yeah, I mean, I have a board here, and I have a big chunk of the terrain from our old club.
Yeah.
So I can host games in the evenings when we're allowed. Yeah, it all just has to be done after he's gone to bed. So it doesn't tend up to be a late night, because obviously a 2001 game of 40k takes 3 hours start to finish. But yeah, that's it basically. Just have to do it all at night.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer. Like, I had a 500-point game recently. There's a bit of Garden Hammer, and that took long enough, because obviously it's using stuff you've not used in a while. What are the rules? Like, taking a second to kind of remember all that. So go in low when you can. Yeah,
I'm anticipating numerous mistakes when for the first game back.
Yeah, well, my first game back, I used Chaos Knights, which I hadn't used since 8th edition. So that was a whole thing that I probably wasn't the best. I thought I'd go for the less models approach, but it didn't really work out all that well. Although I've won one of the games, so it wasn't too bad. 1 out of 2. So you've been in the hobby for 23 years, as you say, so that's a long old time. What have been some of your favorite sculpts over those times? What have been some of your favorite models that you've either had or not had, wish you had?
Do you know what? I don't think Mark Bedford ever knocked out a model that I didn't like. He did all of when the orcs got their like big revamp, when we got the plastic boys, the war boss, the metal knobs, and that. I think those are some of the best sculpts we've seen, and I don't think they've been able to. I don't think any of the orc stuff since Mark Bedford has really hit that mark. Although I will say, I do love the new Gazgol. And if I was in the business of buying models just to build and paint them, that would definitely be at the top of my list.
Yeah, that is a fairly good sculpt. I quite like, and again, I'm not much of an orc lover, but I do quite like the new squig pigs. I forget what they're actually called. They look pretty cool. Good. So obviously someone's taken over in the thing. So Mark Bedford to you is kind of what Darren Latham is to me. I'm kind of like anything Darren Latham put out, and I'm just all over it. I just think he's just an incredible sculptor.
Yeah. Have you seen his Nightbringer that he's building?
The one with the shroud over him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's used the Void Dragon as a base, I think.
yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, it looks pretty sick.
Yeah, that's a model that probably. I mean, he's a monster on the tabletop. I've faced him recently, absolutely horrific. But he's still got that old model, skinny Reaper of Death look to him. So
I remember loving that model at the time, though, because there was nothing. It was like huge by the those standards.
yeah, the only thing that kind of touched that was the old metal Demon Prince at the time. That was sort of like in terms of like size wise.
Yeah.
Obviously, I never had a Nightbringer, but certainly the old metal Demon Prince was fairly sizable for its time, because obviously that was bigger than the Great Unclean one when that came out.
I love that model actually as well. That was a good one.
Well, the metal Demon Prince.
Yeah, it was released at Games Day. I remember because my friend, my friend and his dad went to Games Day. I was like, "Please get me a Demon Prince." He's like, "Okay, I'll try."
Yeah, when I was putting together a Death Guard army, one of the first things I wanted was the old metal Demon Prince. As much of a bugger as it is to put together and keep together, just such an amazing model. That was one of those models that I remember having when I was early teens, and just thinking that I want that again. I tend to go and try out and find like the metal versions of models if they still exist. I certainly did it when I had my Space Wars. So, I think it's better than the Finecast, anyways. Your reaction is the same as everyone else's with Finecast. What's been your worst experience with Finecast?
My worst experience with Finecast was the Gazgul Thracker. Obviously the previous one's the one we have now.
Previous one, yeah. Wasn't he like the third iteration? Was it the third one?
I think it might be I think it's the second version of him, because the original one is second edition, where he's like really flat, like pointing his gun that way and pointing his sword that way. And then we got the new one, which was in the like new style Mega Armor, which was Mark Bedford, absolute masterpiece. It was a Finecast one of those, and it was just like, I've had arrows with less bubbles than that model.
that is a regular problem, and I won't expose him too much, but I remember meeting somebody at Warhammer World, one of their employees / sculptors, and him telling me that Finecast was a bit of a fail, and openly admitting that in the middle of a gaming hall. So that says everything you need to know about how the sculptors feel about, obviously, what they sculpt isn't made out of that. That's just what it gets turned into by the Games Workshop. So it's their work that's ultimately being, not enjoyed the way it should be. Yeah, obviously they were. But the way that plastics come along now, I don't think there's any need for Finecast. Some of the models they're churning out for Age of Sigmar is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
particularly, and obviously the sculpts for 40k as they do them is good.
Yeah, I don't think we ever need to go back to resin or metal.
No, and that's where I don't necessarily, although there is a need for Forge World, is the resin going to be necessary going forward? I know the Forge World lovers like that resin. They seem to like the challenge, but should they make the call over to plastic, and could they justify the big prices if they did?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one. I'm not super convinced by Forge World. I like some of the models. Like I like a lot of the dreadnoughts.
Yeah,
especially like the Leviathan. I've been this close to buying Leviathan so many times. I'm like, no, I've got enough to getting on with. But yeah, like some of the characters, like, and this is more of a design thing than a like a material thing, but I feel like they missed the mark with some of the Primark models. Like some of them are like, yeah, that is him. Like you don't even, spot on what I had in my head reading the Horus Heresy books, but others I'm just a bit like, nah, not what I had in mind.
But again, that's all in the mind of the creator, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Some of them, it's weird though, because some of them have grown on me, like Angron. When I first saw the Forge World Angron model, I was like, that is not what I had in my head when I read the Horus Heresy books. But over time, I'm sort of like, yeah, oh, actually, no, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, something else. So, place your bet. Who's going to be the next Primark to come back to 40k?
I really want it to be Russ.
Is Russ going to return at the same time as the Lion, though, or will he come back alone first?
As cool as it would be to have them come back at the same time, I think for to get the maximum money out of people, they will spread it out.
Yeah,
which is a bit jaded, but
I'm with you. I think it's likely to be Russ, and then he will probably, because of the story, and they still use the whole Dark Angel Space Wolves dynamic. I think he'll be the one to be like, where's the Lion, and he'll be the one to try and almost wake him up, like go and find Gilliman and saying like, why have you not woken him up yet? Why have you not got him out? Why have you not brought him back, sort of thing. So, but how do you then describe bringing him back when he said he was going to come back for the end times, if you will?
I mean, the galaxy's just been split in half, so maybe now's the time.
Maybe. So you obviously said about you've stopped yourself getting a Leviathan because you've got enough to be getting on with. I will say you've absolutely smashed your painting challenge this year. You kind of set yourself a goal between January and June for painting and making, and you've completed it already by what I've seen.
Yeah, I did it in 3 months. I set myself 6 months and I did it in 3. I was that. So I decided to go, rather than set myself a new challenge, I thought I'll let the time just tick around till June. I'll just work on whatever I want. And then when we get to the end of June, I'll set myself a new 6 months challenge from end of June to December. But yeah, I found that really motivating, actually, setting the list of targets.
That's kind of one of the good words. I'm always, if I've got something new and I've got a game coming up and I really, really want to put this new thing in, that's the most motivating thing for me. Obviously, with lockdown, it's not been possible to do that, though I've still, had a bit of time off work. So I was able to start 2 whole new armies. But I always get that little buzz from finishing a model or a unit, like, oh, they look awesome. And then you start putting them together and the army starts to build around it. Have you started to find that when completing all these things, like you get that little buzz?
I do, yeah. I was like, I'm sure you probably saw from my Instagram that like it just slowly building up. The picture of the whole army just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it got to the point where it was a legal army, and then it got to the point where it was 1,000 points, and then it got to the point where I was like, that's real. Like I don't really like my Instagram is really for me, like being able to track my progress. It really motivates me and makes me kind of want to like get stuff done.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the best way to run run an Instagram, is to not try and do it for the likes, not try and do it for anything else. Obviously, it's great to get good feedback on models, as long as it is good feedback and you don't just get people being shitty at you. But the best thing to do is to use it for you, so that, again, like you say, you're marking that progress, and you can't beat that feeling of kind of seeing 2 fully painted armies going at it on the tabletop. Like it is better than facing a grey tide or an army that's undercoated all in one. It's better for the visual for everyone.
Yeah, it's a lot more immersive.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to do really with the whole hobby. We're trying to immerse ourselves and forget that the world is pretty screwed up when we're firing at each other and tabletop.
Yeah, it's real weird right now. Real weird.
Yeah, like I say, it's been both good and bad for the hobby, because the lockdown seems to have brought a lot of people back to the hobby because they found all this spare time. What do I do with it? Oh, what's Games Workshop up to these days? Oh, I'll order a little box, and then people are coming back to it. But obviously, the ability to play, certainly in the UK, has been non-existent. So in terms of like play testing, I've got a Death Guard Codex that I've now had for months that I've not been able to use, and those sorts of things, where they're relying on the play testers from Australia or the United States or Canada, where they've still been able to play games, or those who've got it as their profession. The standard guy on the street doesn't doesn't have the option, which has been sucky because we've only been able to watch.
Yeah, I've missed it. I've really missed it.
I say throwing dice, was it last week or the week before? Even though it was only for a couple of hours over 2 games, was liberating. Even if I did have a headache from trying to remember rules and looking through books, competitive reading, and all the rest of it, it was worth it. So obviously, despite having to do games after the boys in bed and everything like that, you do seem to, when we're allowed to, manage to play a fair amount.
Yeah, I certainly try to. Obviously, being able to host the games that's like a huge part of it, and it's it's nice. It's like it makes for a good evening. It's a good way to catch up. Like one of my buddies who I play quite a lot, he loves to cook, so he'll come straight from work and he'll cook and we'll eat and then we'll play, and it just makes for a really it's a good time, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So if you can recall over your 23-year Warhammer career, we'll call it, what have been some of your favorite in-game moments?
There's been a few. I had this one of my favorite moments, which I'll never forget, was at Warhammer GT, and it was, I can't remember, I want to say 6th or 7th edition, and it was like the final turn, and I was playing a dwarf player, and I really hate, so I'm going to pause out there, I really hate gotcha moments, when people are like, you weren't expecting that, were you? But this one was brilliant. So I was playing this dwarf guy, and I charged a block of, like, I think they were hammerers or longbeards or something, with just a wizard, and the guy audibly snorted. He went, all right. I also charged a unit of something else that was next to them, with like my big block of, I had a Glade Guard, they're called. They're like elite spearmen dudes, with my Lord and my Battle Standard Bearer in there. So they charged as well. And in this edition, and I think the guy had forgotten, I fought the big combat first. The Glade Guard defeated and broke the unit they were fighting, and then overran into the other unit, which meant they then got to fight in that combat as well.
So your wizard didn't stand alone.
No, but the thing was, the trick was, the only reason they got to fight again is because it was an existing combat. If you just overrun into them, then they fight next turn. But because it was a combat that hadn't been resolved yet, they got to fight again, and he was like, "Oh no!" And obviously, because I hit them in the flank, they broke as well. It was an absolute massacre. But I was like, that was one of those moments. I was just like, yes, this will go down. I will remember this forever.
Did you feel a bit like Sam Allardyce when he does that whole, we've out-tacticked him, he doesn't like it? No.
I like, if he hadn't snorted so derisively, I might have felt a bit bad about it. But the fact that, like, he clearly thought I was making a ridiculous mistake, I was like, well.
And that's the problem with being an elitist and having that elitist mentality, like, that's not even going to work. Perhaps do that afterwards, going, I don't know why you did that, instead of just up front going, because you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've had some real whoopsies over the years as well. I remember one game I had against a friend. It was Mephiston. It's his Mephiston versus my Great Unclean One. And I can't remember exactly how many attacks a Great Unclean One has at the time. I think it was like 6 or 7, maybe less. But I hit with all of them, and let's say it was 5. So I hit with all 5 attacks, and then I rolled 5 ones.
I mean, that's a Yahtzee,
so
not the Yahtzee you want.
Yeah, the wrong side of the Yahtzee, yeah. And then Mephiston popped in with his force weapon, and I was like, oh man, that's not cool.
that's I say, something to remember, but not necessarily for the right reasons. So obviously you're a Magic the Gathering player as well. Warhammer 40,000, Magic the Gathering. What are your feelings?
I'm pretty excited actually.
Did you
I
think
think
they
it's
should
gonna
have
be cool.
used Sigmar instead?
Do you know what? I hadn't even thought of that, but I think 40k will be fine. The reason I'm excited, there's two reasons I'm excited. The first reason is it's Commander, which is the format Magic that I play. I don't really play any other format because I'm a real casual Commander player. I don't take it very seriously at all. And the second reason I was really excited is Magic has this. So like, there's something about Magic that allows them to create things that you couldn't ever put on the tabletop. So, for example, I'll give the specific example that sprang to my mind was in Magic, you could have a card, you could have a like a creature card that represented the hive mind for the Tyranids.
That's true, actually.
But you could never have a model for the hive mind in the game. Obviously, in the miniatures game, it's just never, it's not something you could ever do. But the way Magic works is that you could feasibly have something like a character that you could never have in the game could quite easily be in Magic, because it's not always about, like, obviously, so for example, like what are they called, the super big is it dominatrix, the Tyranid? I'm sure there's like, I think it's dominatrix, there's like a Tyranid creature in the fluff, and they're like huge, and like it's not something you could ever have on the tabletop because they're just ridiculously powerful. But you could quite easily have a card for that, because Magic is about more than just raw stats, which is, I kind of feel like 40k is sort of limited. Like most characters have a fairly decent stat line, and then like a special rule and a magic item of some kind. That's pretty much all characters in 40k at the moment.
Yeah.
One special rule, one magic item, or within those limits. But yeah, for Magic, there's a lot more scope, because you could just have so using the hive mind as an example, the creature itself wouldn't necessarily need to be that powerful, but then its effect and its abilities could be, amazing without breaking the game.
But then this is, I guess, I mean, this is probably one of the most positive responses I've had to the question about Warhammer and Magic the Gathering. Most people go, no, it never worked. It should be Age of Sigmar. But along those sort of things where you can obviously have a card for the hive mind, you can have cards for things like, is it Typhus's ship, the Terminus Est?
Yeah.
Which, you could never put that on the tabletop because it would be as big as the tabletop, like realistically. So you could actually have a card for that as like whatever rules you beat. That's the sort of thing that I suppose you could bring into it. It's a well-known ship, but you could never really put it on tabletop in any fashion that does it justice.
Absolutely.
And
so yeah, I'm really interested to see what they do with it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether they do like say a Space Marine card, whether it will just be a Space Marine on its own, or whether it would be a Space Marine squad. How do you think they'll do that?
I think they'll do like I think it'll be like, so you'll have a tactical squad as a creature card.
Yeah, I was thinking they'd do it like as a squad rather than individual Space Marines, in order to make a bit more narrative, because then you'd have like a tac squad, a Terminator squad, you'd have an HQ as your commander of some description. I would imagine they'll do HQs, probably people like Gilliman. I would expect Gilliman to be.
Yeah, I'm hoping at least one primark pokes their head out.
I would think logic tells me to do Tyranids and Space Marines as your initial, like, I don't know, dual set or whatever, and then easily build from there. But it's good that they've given their card game to somebody who knows how to build the card game, because every card game so far, they're not amazing.
I've never tried any of them, to be honest. This is something that's never appealed to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, packaging it in something that I already know is, take my money.
And that's the thing, and that's something Games Workshop have started doing. You know, they wanted to branch out into action figures. Well, instead of making their own action figures, go to somebody who knows how to make action figures. The Funko Pops, they didn't just think, oh, we're going to make our own version of those. They actually went to Funko and said, here's our IP, do something with it. And obviously they're doing it with Magic. So Monopoly, I think isn't there a Warhammer Monopoly that exists?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there is, yeah.
So they're actually, some bright spark on their board of directors has gone, we've got all this IP, well, let's just give it to people who know what they're doing. We still make money. It's a better game for it. And let's just stick to what we're good at, which is tabletop stuff.
Yep.
So that's the great way. So you mentioned earlier about reading things like Horus Heresy. Much of a lore lover?
I would say yes, but I would also say I'm probably a bit behind. My last couple of codexes, I went digital.
Yeah.
And I hate reading from a tablet. Like, I just can't do it. I just get, I don't know why. I just like really, I just can't get into it. It's not the same as reading a book. So yeah, I'm a bit behind, I would imagine.
I'm with you on that one. But the problem is, in terms of like getting codexes, lore from the codexes, is something that people have started to realize, including myself. The amount of lore you get in a codex is reducing with almost like the last, certainly in ninth, the amount of lore that I've got in the codexes is, they've lost a lot. Whether that's because they're planning on making you want to read the books to get the lore, or what, just putting in the basic spine, if you will, to give their writers a bit more freedom and to open up Black Library a little bit more. But you know, they're losing bits of it in the codex, so I don't know where that goes in future.
Yeah, I think not being too specific, I think that what you say about like giving the writers more leg room, like wiggle room and stuff, is, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, because there's always been the fight between lore and canon. Oh, if it's from a book, it's canon. If it's from the codex, it's lore. And I think, you know, they need to allow it to be a bit more ambiguous and allow their writers that they've got hundreds of ready to write books and stuff. Well, not hundreds, probably a bit of an exaggeration, but loads of people want to write for them, sort of thing, and gives them more room to move and create stories and stuff, especially if they want to do, obviously with Age of Sigmar, they are actively moving the story forward really well. 40k feels like it's been stuck in the same, you know, few 100-year period for a very, very long time. So if they're looking to move that forward somehow.
Yeah, well, Gathering Storm was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That sort of kicked everything up a bit. But yeah, it was very stagnant.
And Psychic Awakening wasn't the shift that we all thought it was going to be.
No, do you know what? I don't think I bought a single Psychic Awakening book. I was like, it's like a few pages for my army. I was like, nah, not that interested.
I know people that bought the book and go, oh, I got one page of like rule changes, which I could have probably just picked up from Battle Scribe or something of that nature. I did buy a few, but that was just because of the amount of games that I do normally play. I thought I might need them. And like I say, some of them came with like 15 pages of stuff that's new. And some of them came with 2 pages and you're like, I'm not even a stratagem there. Like, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
So it is completely hit and miss. So you said obviously you're going to set yourself a target from June to Christmas. What are you thinking is going to go on there?
Do you know what? I think I'm having a real internal struggle at the moment, actually, about between finishing my Marines and building my demons. And I'm really struggling to make a decision. So my head tells me finish my Marines before I build my demons. But then I look at how many Marines I've got left to do, and I'm like, oh, pile of shame is, it's not awful. Obviously, I've painted a lot recently. But yeah, I think I need to find a balance between continuing to paint my Space Marines whilst building my demons.
Yeah, I'm one of those super rare hobbyists that comes around once in a lifetime. That is my pile of shame.
So that's impressive.
That I'm pretty good at like buying and then painting, and that's from the Harry Potter, that's from the Batman mini game, and that's just a box of plague bearers. That's it.
That is some strong self-discipline. To be fair, if I hadn't bought the demons, then it wouldn't be so bad. But yeah, I a bit of an impulse purchase, I think. Like looking at it, bigger picture.
But they are there when the time comes, and I think perhaps waiting closer to like a Demon's Codex. Obviously, I know we don't know when a Demon's Codex is going to appear or anything like that. So I think when that starts coming along, you're going to start looking at it going, I want to get the demons out now.
I think that would pretty much seal the deal. Like if we got an announcement of the Demon Codex, it'd be like, okay, well, I've got about 3,000 points of Marines painted now, so the rest of it can wait.
Yeah, I don't. Admittedly, the demon side of my Nurgle is probably only around 1,000-ish points, but I'm certainly waiting for when the Demons Codex comes out, which is why I've got a box of Plague Bearers and just start fleshing that side of the Nurgle army out, because I've got every Marine Nurgle type thing that you can get, if not 2 or 3 of them. So I think the next thing for me to do, like after fleshing out my Eldar a little bit more, will be to revisit the Nurgle demons. So the last question that I ask pretty much everybody, this hobby, whilst it's a big part of most of our lives, it's not everything. What are the other hobbies that you have that keep you sane apart from painting and playing with toy soldiers?
I think it's pretty much just Magic, to be fair. Like we used to, before we had our kid, we used to go to the cinema all the time, but that's not super compatible with having a child. So yeah, it's mostly stuff that can be done at home. Like it's before the pandemic, we pretty much had a house full every Friday night. If it's not Magic, it's Warhammer, one or the other. Yeah, so that's for not a very exciting answer, I'm afraid, because we've always
but we're like, as of hopefully, if everything goes okay, it's May the 17th in this country that you can start having people actually in the house again, so you can actually play games of Warhammer. So yes, it's the May 17th. As the rule of 6 comes indoors.
Oh, I thought it was a bit late. I thought it was June 21st or something.
June 21st is when lockdown is supposedly done, obviously depending if everything goes according to their plan. But May 17th is when it's rule of 30 outside and 6 indoors.
Wow.
So suddenly, it suddenly goes from this like small, you can have 6 people outside, to you can have them indoors and you can meet 30 people outside. So, but that does mean that you can sit around a table, and I know one of the guys in the gaming group that I usually play with just bought Cursed City. I'm hoping that he gets that sort of painted up, and we can sit around a table and have a go at that. And like I say, playing. I've got some Magic decks somewhere, and I've not played it in probably 3-4 years easily. But being able to sit around a table and play that sort of thing is hopefully coming, and that'll just help a lot of people who have found the last, or certainly however long since we've been back in the lockdown, to be stressful and long.
Yeah, people have just forgotten how to function.
Yeah, I mean, people's tolerance for other people appears to have gone down massively. Like it's almost like someone's breathing seems to wind people up now because they're not used to it. Everyone's become an agoraphobic, like being outdoors throws them off, like, what is this? But hopefully we can all sort of go back to normal. I think as hobbyists, I think everybody's just looking forward to being able to get back to playing games, even if you do have to start with some 500 pointers just to remember what the hell you're doing.
Oh no, we'll dive in head first, I reckon.
Well, prepare for a long day and a big headache.
Yeah, I've yet to field my 2,000 points painted army, so I think I can't not give it a go.
I mean, if I'd have waited as long as you to get like a 2,000 point army, then like fully painted, then I would probably be like, no, I can't choose. I want to put it all out there. Like, let's do it. But no, that's one of the reasons why I've not fielded the Eldar or my Grey Knights yet. Mainly because Grey Knights are terrible at the moment, so I won't bother with those quite yet. But I mean, even Eldar aren't that great. But I will at least try a game with them soon, but not until I can at least put them all or as many of them on the board as possible, because I don't know what any of it does properly. So I want to see it all.
One way to find out.
Exactly. Well, dude, thank you very much for obviously coming on. The new top of the leaderboard as well.
Oh yeah.
For those that don't know, you sent me a message saying I could beat that time. Very confident, very matter of fact. I thought there's only one way to find out. Let's get him on, and boom, beat it by 11 seconds. Nobody's yet to get under the minute, but that might happen one day. But you were very, very quick. So congratulations on being number one on our leaderboard. There's no prize, but
pride is my prize.
There you go, pride, and your name will sit at the top of the leaderboard until somebody comes along and dethrones you.
I do feel I need to clarify one thing, which is a bit obscure. You said the thing I hate most about the hobby. Do you remember my answer?
You said it very quick, and I was like, I didn't quite catch what that was. So please clarify that before we go off air.
So it's Gary movement.
What is the Gary movement?
So basically, like, our group of friends, we've been playing together for like probably, I don't know, pushing 20 years now. And it's just one of those things that stuck. And you know, like when somebody, I don't have a tape measure nearby, but you know when somebody like measures and then they sort of start to move the model and they pick up their tape measure and it sort of doesn't land where the end of their tape measure was.
Yeah.
They gain that extra inch here and there. We had a friend, obviously called Gary.
I was going to say, it's got to be called Gary.
he used to do that. And obviously we just pulled him up on it and it became a sort of an in-joke, and it's something that's just stuck. He doesn't do it anymore. He hasn't done it for years, but it will forever be known as Gary movement in our circle of friends. I
mean, no, to be fair, you did say that. I was like, oh, I need to circle back around to whatever that answer was. And yeah, because one of my pet peeves is when people like nudge a bit of scenery or move a bit of scenery to get their models in, and you're like, what are you doing? Oh, my model wouldn't fit. Well, that's not how it works, mate. Like, can you just put that back, please? Thank you.
Just push that out of the way so that it'll fit.
Yeah, like whenever it's things like, if it's things like barrels and small crates, realistically they'd kick them out of the way, so I'm not too asked about that. But if you're literally moving a giant concrete building so your model can fit, that's no, that's not cool. And I've played games where that happens. But Gary movement is a thing. I have also seen that be done, but not probably by your friend Gary.
No, probably not. It was a long time ago. But I just want to put it out there into the universe. I want it to become a global thing. Like, I want everyone to call it Gary movement.
Well, I'm sure I'll find a way to start calling it Gary movement, and I'll try and drop it in as many videos with as many people. If I can get somebody in like Canada to say Gary movement in a video, that'll be it.
That would be it. Yeah.
Then you can show whoever Gary is and say, there you go, you've made it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, appreciate you coming on. Thanks for setting the record, and thanks for telling us all about Gary movement, because this will be a thing.
Enjoy.
Dude, thank you very much.
Cheers, buddy.